Welcome back, YouTube. Today has been a fun, productive day. We did a bunch of training in the morning, and then went and got we did an in-body scan here at Adapt, and then went to Body Spec and got a DEXA scan, which is kind of the commercially grade, I guess, most accurate body composition scan. So trying to see kind of the differences, the discrepancies, but we use the in-body with a more frequent approach while I weigh myself twice a week, in-body every month, and then DEXA scan maybe once or twice a year. So now we're transitioning into the cutting phase. Want to try and see where muscle mass is at, things like that, try to preserve muscle as much as possible. So body fat or total body weight this morning was 217 pounds. By the time we actually got our DEXA, we already had a meal, so it wasn't completely fasted. We were sitting closer to like 221, and body fat percentage on the DEXA was about 11%, while the in-body was reading closer to like 7%. So yeah, directional accuracy for the in-body, as long as things are moving in the right direction, that's great, but actual precision with the DEXA is kind of what we're going off of. So thank you. Now I will. So warming up with some assisted pull-ups, just trying to focus on getting a big stretch in the lats as much as possible. So kind of hanging at the bottom, aggressively kind of pulling, and then just kind of slowly controlling. But we're gonna move on to the bulk of the work. We'll start off with some single arm pull downs. So let's get it. One big thing, trying to limit muscle loss during this cutting phase. Obviously, it's always the goal. So trying to employ some slower tempos, pauses, things like that, just more time under tension to recruit as much muscle as possible without just doing like crazy numbers of reps. So in my head, it makes sense. I don't want to do a bunch of reps and calorically exhaust and kind of get flat. So trying to just take advantage of just more micro trauma, more time under tension, a la Dorian Yates, high intensity training methodologies. Not so high intensity, not so low volume that we're just doing one set to failure. So it's kind of more of a modified high intensity training approach. I'll still do 3 sets, 4 sets for some exercises, all to failure, but failure is kind of just auto-regulatory. So when someone can't recruit as much muscle, as much stress, as much fatigue like Dorian, right? Like I'm not doing 300-pound pull downs or 400-pound bent over rows, things like that. So the amount of stress that I'm accumulating is a lot less. So probably would mean that I need to employ a little bit more volume than just like one set to failure. Oh. Yeah, not necessarily textbook high intensity training, as Dorian Yates has kind of popularized, you know, Arthur Jones, Mike Mincer, Dorian Yates. Really, the concept of reaching failure at a set intensity range is kind of what I'm going for more so. So first 2 sets, maybe in that 8 to 12 rep range, and then that last set, back down, drop the weight 15, 20%, and then just try to crank that out for like 12 to 15. Moving on to chest supported rows here. Again, always a good opportunity to just take advantage of some heavy force. So we're gonna control tempos as much as we can. It might get to the point where the only tempo we really get is a pause in an eccentric because the concentric just won't keep moving. So if that's the case, I'm fine with that. I'm just gonna take advantage of it and keep the intensity as high as possible. Yeah, so pretty heavy there. I've been taking advantage of this machine in a little different way, kind of leaning forward a lot more, sitting back in the seat some, kind of like I'm riding a motorcycle, and really just trying to focus on keeping the elbows low here. So that elbow drive is keeping the lat engaged for much longer. Oh. Ooh. Ouch. Oh, yeah, so moving on, supinated pull downs, getting a little bit more bicep involvement, isolating the lats a little bit more. Overall just feels really good. Getting everything just firing, mind to muscle connection just really high. So sometimes the best exercises are the exercises you feel the most and can load the most without increased risk of injury. So The easiest cue for me, what I find works most well or easiest for a lot of my clients, is just focusing on driving your elbows down. If they think too much about what the shoulders are doing, things like that, the path, it's just push your elbows down. That way all you're focusing on is elbow to shoulder joint. You're not really worried about elbow to wrist. That's where the bicep and forearm fatigue is gonna start kicking in. Just drive that elbow down, pull hard, pull under control, and grow. We'll move on to some single arm rows, get some straight arm pull downs, rear delts, and then just crush some biceps. Okay, so this might look a little funky to some people, but all we're doing is just getting a little bit of extra length by rotating that lead shoulder back, forcing the arm to kind of cross the body more, get that lat to wrap, because it already kind of inserts here by the rib cage, and so by leaning across the body or allowing the arm to rotate across the body, we're just increasing the stretch in the lat. So we might lose a little bit in this retracted position, but if we have to choose between getting more length or more shortening and can achieve both, I'd rather get more length, more micro trauma, and yeah, added benefit is less likelihood of injury. You train the length and range, that's where you get really strong. The length and range is where you're most likely to experience injury, so win-win. Biggest challenge is just making sure we're not using the core to rotate. So bracing that hand here, trying to lock your body in place, and also kind of angling your legs. So it's really, really obvious if you start doing this, you're basically turning 1/4 of your body against the other 3/4 of it. So it becomes really obvious if you start using the obliques, erectors, and trunk rotators. Okay. back down. One more set on both sides. And then we can start isolating a little bit. Ooh. All right, come on. Let's do it. Yeah, love this movement. Kind of a cheat code when it comes to back growth, because when everything else is hit the sheets and fatigued, you can still just keep that lat firing. So not really focused on grip, forearms, biceps, rear delts, traps, rotator cuff, any of that shit. It's just rotate that arm, keep that arm straight, or at least in the same degree of elbow bend the entire time. And it's just all lat. I like the extra long handles for these because as long as you can get there, getting your hands outside of your body and getting that lat to a completely shortened position makes such a big difference. So you can get maximally lengthened over your head and really reach, and get maximally shortened behind your back and really contract and squeeze. If you get smaller handles, you might get stuck just, you know, pounding your quads, and it's just different. The kind of one exception for any kind of lateral raise, as you just saw, that I have is the rear delt raise, just because gravity more so aligns with the movement. So being in that bent over position, that weight, as soon as you start moving, gravity's acting on it, as opposed to when you do lateral raises, all that weight is straight down instead of against the arm, right? So all that force from here to about here should be more inward force, not downward force. So the rear delts, I don't mind firing and doing, you know, a lot of volume with the dumbbells, but I still think cables are probably more my preference. Starting off with some hammer curls. Again, kind of more just preventative maintenance. Although, of course, we're gonna get a great bicep pump. Just making sure we're keeping any of that tendonitis and stuff that we did have out of the way. So just playing with rotations, supinated, neutral, pronated, all that stuff, trying to incorporate it, whether it's just in warm-ups or in working sets. But can't neglect that wrist rotation. Last movement, just a couple sets to failure here, controlling tempo as much as possible, and then we'll get a little posing practice and food. I know, I moved that one because the other one's so heavy, honestly. It's funny how like we're doing an activity to expend energy, but we're also so lazy about how we do it. Like I choose the lightest bench possible to move. If I'm doing anything with dumbbells, it's right by the rack. Like. That is a wrap for today. Back, biceps, a little bit of rear delts. Nothing too crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. Just feeling pretty good. Weights down. So again, weighed in at about 217. Started the maintenance around 222. So probably just shedding a lot of water weight right now. But yeah, food is not too low. Energy's not too low. Still kind of riding the wave. Feeling pretty good overall. Strength still at least holding for all exercises. Haven't really gotten noticeably weaker for anything, so can't really complain about that. But yeah, so let's see. What else is there? We'll get a check-in Thursday, posing practice Thursday with my new posing coach. And yeah, just stick to the grind and see how we see what we weigh in at on Thursday. Should be a good one. So thanks for liking, watching, following, subscribing. And we're gonna hit some poses and we'll see you on the next one. Bo Alexander, Adapt Fitness, Dallas, Texas. Bye. gonna get better.